Ladies and gentlemen, I call to order the May meeting of the Oxford Planning Commission. Commissioners, you have the agenda before you. Are there any changes or additions to the agenda from staff or from the commission? If not, is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second. All in favor? Aye. Commissioner Smith?
Aye.
Thank you. There's no, the minutes. Have you all had a chance to read the minutes? Is there a motion or any changes on the minutes? There's a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a second. All in favor? Aye. Commissioner Smith?
Aye.
Thank you. There's no staff report. Commissioners, please note the administrative approval for case number 3217. There's one case on the consent agenda. Is there a motion on the consent agenda, or is there any desire to discuss that case? Hearing none, is there a motion on the consent agenda?
Motion to approve.
Is a motion to approve? Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Commissioner Smith?
Aye.
Thank you. That brings us to our first public hearing. It'll be case number 3208. Melissa Williams and Sarah Camp have filed a request for,
I'm recusing myself.
all right, please let the record show that Commissioner Milam is recusing himself. Filed a request for a variance from section 2.6.4.1 traditional suburban residential overlay lot size minimum, and B, a variance from section 5.8.4.4 Conservation Overlay District's yard standards for property located at 1418 Adams Avenue. Kate?
Okay, so the applicant seeks the two variances that JR just described for the subject of this case, 3208. The applicant intends to subdivide the lot upon which the existing house sits into a two-lot subdivision. That plat is the subject of case number 3209, also on this meeting agenda. The two requested variances are intended to rectify nonconformities that would be created by subdividing the lot. Just for a little bit of background, the existing L-shaped lot has a house fronting Adams Avenue, 1418 Adams, the lot was the site of an unapproved demolition of the second house that was there, located on the lot 433 North 15th Street. The lot was the subject of a special exception before this commission in November of 2022 to allow for a residential common interest development. At that time, the lot was overbuilt according to the land development code, as the lot sizes do not allow for two primary dwellings on a lot of this size. Staff and the applicant discussed that if one of the dwellings were to be removed, that it would correct this nonconformity, that no new dwelling in its place would be supported by staff. At the November 2022 meeting, the special exception for the residential common interest development was approved by the Planning Commission, with one of the stated conditions that if either primary building is demolished, a new dwelling cannot be rebuilt in its place. So I'm going to cover the variance for lot size minimum first, as item A. Lot 1, proposed lot 1, which is the site of the existing house, would only be 5,575.68 square feet after subdivision, which will require a 1,924 square foot variance from the code. 433 North 15th Street was the site of the building that I mentioned that was listed as a contributing structure in the North Lamar Historic District. The prior property owner received approval from the Historic Preservation Commission for rehabilitation and addition plans, and the building was then fully demolished without approval. So, as noted above, the prior condition that if 433 North 15th Street was demolished, that no building could be put back in its place was a part of that 2022 approval. The applicants currently fail to provide a hardship that would justify granting of this variance. Additionally, the unapproved demolition carries consequences according to the city's Historic Preservation Code. According to section 5427 of the Municipal Code, the Preservation Commission has the authority to deny an application on the property where a resource was demolished without approval for up to 48 months. And the building was demolished in late 2023, meaning that the Preservation Commission could still enforce this moratorium allowed by the code. It's staff's opinion that the circumstances of this request are a result of the actions of the prior owner of the property. And staff remains consistent with the prior action by the Planning Commission and recommends denial of the lot size minimum requested variance. And so item B, the variance from the side yard setback. The second variance request is from the side yard setback requirements, which are 10 feet for this lot. The house, so we're talking about the existing house that's still there on the lot, 1418 Adams Avenue. The house is an existing nonconformity when it comes to this requirement. According to the survey, it sits 6.98 feet away from the property line at the rear corner and 9.64 feet away at the front corner. There are no additions planned to the building at this time, and it's appropriate for the commission to grant this variance to remedy the existing nonconformity. So staff finds that this request is acceptable and is recommending approval of item B, which is the side yard setback variance. So I'm happy to answer any questions you guys have.
Thank you. So before I open up to questions, just to summarize, it's an L-shaped piece of property. There were previously two structures, one at each end of the L.
Yep.
And in 2022, they asked to separate ownership through an RCID. And as a condition on that, it was approved conditional on both structures remaining standing at least.
Yes.
And one of them was subsequently demolished, and then the whole thing sold. Is that
Right.
correct? Okay.
So it was a previous owner who demolished the house without approval.
Okay.
Yeah.
Questions from the commission?
It was demolished after he knew it couldn't be demolished.
Yes.
He demolished.
Kate, I don't know if this is,
What'd you say, Aaron?
I don't know if this is a question for you or the applicant, but just confirming that the current owners are not, or I guess the previous owners are not a part of this property now.
Correct. The lot has sold.
Just for clarification, I think the house on Adams might be the previous owner,
Oh, that's true.
but the house on 15th Street is a new owner.
Okay. So within the RCID, okay.
Yeah. So they're seeking to subdivide off the, I guess what you would call vacant part of the lot now from the home that's owned by the previous owner of the entire lot.
Wouldn't that dissolve the RCID, or would it still be in place with two lots? Or is that not clear? Sometime after moving the budget.
Yes.
If the subdivision were approved, would the RCID still be in place, or would it be dissolved? Okay. Yeah, thank you. Other questions?
So RCID is dissolved.
If it's subdivided, yes.
Which is the next case.
When was it demolished?
2022.
Says here 23.
Okay. The special exception was in 2022. Yeah, it was at the end of the year in 2023.
And who was the owner?
It was an LLC with Dave Van Lanningham and John Albritton.
All right, so March, there's a warranty deed from Albritton to Lacey May, which is David Van Landingham. And then July of 2023, there's a warranty deed from David Van Landingham, aka Lacey May Properties, to himself. Then in February of 2024, there's a quick claim from Van Landingham back to Albritton. And then Albritton back to Lacey May via condo deed, which is after the RCID. And so we're saying that the person that tore the house down was who?
They were partners, and Dave Van Lanningham was the contractor as well as an owner. But in terms of ownership now, I'd rather let the applicant speak to that. I'm not sure what.
So the person
things lie.
bought, but the person bought the house or bought the lot after, I mean, they bought an empty lot, right?
They bought.
Yeah, they were partners in
Yeah.
the development, as I understand it, at the time that this all came before you. And one was going to own one property on Adams, one was going to own property on 15th Street. And
Well-
there were renovations that were approved by the Historic Preservation Commission for the house on 15th Street. And during those renovations, it was, the structure was demolished.
I think, well, correct me if I'm wrong, but is your question, if the structure was demolished, what changed ownership since then?
Essentially,
No, what changed ownership? If it's an RCID with common ownership of the property and individual ownership of the structures, and there's no structure, what's changed ownership? Okay. Okay, is the applicant present?
Yes.
Could you please come forward?
Yes. Jeff's gonna be first, and then I will, yeah.
Yeah.
My name's Jeff Williams with Williams Engineering Consultants, representing the purchaser that's trying to get this done. I can't speak to the ownership of the entire property. It's a CID. It's my understanding that both units for those CID, they would be part owner of the entire parcel. Common areas would be dictated by, partial ownership. So my defense into the denial of the variance to the lot size for lot 1, which indicated on the preliminary plat that was submitted, preliminary and final plat, it is 5,575 square feet, which, as Kate said, we would need a variance of 1,924 square feet. But we're not really asking for something that wasn't done a long time ago. This property in 1938 was purchased and sold as a lot to its own, and it was approximately 4,860 square feet, a 90 by 54 parcel. So as time went on, the person that bought that lot was a member of the family that owned the entire parcels of City Lot 140 and City Lot 411. So they own the parcel that is now empty, along with the purchase. It was an inside purchase from the family to a single person. So it changed it to a subdivided lot at that time. So we're asking for lot 1, which the house that's there now is built in 1930. This transaction took place in 1938. So we're asking for that lot to be reinstated to basically the way it was sold originally in 1938, which would leave us lot 2, which would not need any variances, and there would be a structure built, a single-family residence that would, the lot would be sold to somebody that wanted to build a home for themselves. So we have 6 letters of approval for this request for this subdivision, for this variance to lot size. So we respectfully ask that it be approved.
Can I come up and?
Sure.
Please, come on.
Thank you. Thanks, Jeff. Thank you. Hi.
Thank y'all so much. I'm Sarah Camp Milam. I live at 425 North 15th Street, which is next to 423. So I think the main thing that I hope everybody understands as we come to you with this request is that we are not affiliated with the previous owner that carried out the demolition. We are a new owner under a new use seeking to receive this variance, subdivide the lot, and put a structure, a single-family house, back where there was previously, and for a very long time, a single-family house. So we bought the lot from John Albritton. We were not affiliated with Van Albritton and Landingham in the previous ownership, and we were not party to the demolition except as next door neighbors who were dismayed to see it happen. And I've lived at 425 North 15th Street since 2014. My husband, who has a couple of years on me, bought the house when he finished law school in 2000. So he's been there for 25 years. I've been there for 11 years. And so with our neighbors, our neighbor Melissa Williams on the other side of us, we bought this portion and are hoping to build a single family house to have neighbors rather than a vacant lot where there had previously been a house.
Thank you, ma'am.
Do you have questions?
That answered everything that I had.
Okay. Thank you. And my understanding, the last thing I'll say is my understanding is that the previous owner who carried out the demolition was punished for it and subsequently sold it to us. So just he's been punished and we're in new use, neighbors seeking to build a house for neighbors.
What was the punishment?
You know better than I was, but my understanding was that it was a fine.
There was a fine. I mean, I think materially, the bigger punishment was the condition that was put on the RCID approval. And I don't know what was related in the sale of that lot to you, but that ran with that piece of property. And so I think the difficulty now is that whether or not, I mean, I think you're still in common ownership with the original owner via the RCID, but whether or not that owner is still involved or not, there's still that condition that was put on the RCID itself. And
Yeah, and we understand that, and the reason that we're coming to you and asking for this is because we would prefer, and I think we have, we've submitted letters from 12 neighbors who would all prefer to have a single-family house on this lot. With the previous owner having been punished, our neighbors are in agreement that they would prefer to have a single-family house on this lot than a vacant lot that doesn't look very good on the street. So, yeah.
Ben, can you just refresh my memory? If I remember right, when we heard the RCID proposal to begin with, the justification, in part at least, was that the lot was too small to subdivide in the first place, and the RCID would allow separable ownership and still allow the two structures. Is that right?
That's precisely correct.
Okay. So in effect, we've come back to that same issue, but we've just got this messy interim to deal with as well.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Any other questions from the commission for the applicant or anyone else?
I mean, in the event that this is denied, what's the next step?
If the variance is denied?
Yeah, what's going to, I mean, is he going to sit there as an empty lot? I mean, what's the recourse for?
Yeah, I think the applicant has an appeals procedure that could go to the Mayor and Board of Aldermen for consideration. If they uphold a denial, then the property would continue to remain undeveloped. And even as Kate mentioned in the report, even as part of granting this variance and the subdivision, does not necessarily mean that something could be constructed there, because it would still require Historic Preservation Commission approval. And there are, I think that that's something that needs to be discussed with them as to what could be constructed if, especially since there was an unauthorized demolition. And I think the concern that I hear is if you have a piece of property that's in a historic district and you go and you tear it down without any authorization and you pay a fine, and then that means I can sell that to somebody else for the purposes of redevelopment, like that's concerning too over historic properties. That especially all the folks that have gone through the process and the procedure for a certificate of appropriateness with that commission. I mean, that's a concern from my perspective.
Yeah, I mean, it effectively just encourages the seller to put the fee into the purchase price of the property and tear it down. Okay.
It is typically 4 years when something like this happens, the time frame that something cannot be done. Is that the way I read that?
So the historic preservation ordinance for demolitions provided two options and two paths, and that was a path for demolition that includes plans for new construction. And then if you didn't have plans for new construction, then you could provide a landscaping plan that, and then it also required a covenant or a restriction by the owner of the property for 4 years, 48 months. And given the circumstances in this case, the Preservation Commission asked for modifications to the ordinance to provide some sort of provisions if there was an unauthorized demolition because of these circumstances. And so at that time, 48 months was determined, since that was something that was already in place. If you didn't have plans for new construction, a 48-month period from the time that a site plan was submitted was determined to be an appropriate measure to be added to the ordinance. You know, and I think that provision was put in place around 2006, 5, 6, 7, 8, when we were seeing a lot of speculation during the housing crisis that took place then, some speculation on properties where people were coming in and they were demolishing properties or structures and then just turn around and selling vacant land for the purposes of building something new.
Yes, sir.
What's typically the fine for this? Or is there a typical fine or?
There's state statutes. I'll lean on Paul here if I say it incorrectly. There's state statutes on penalties. And so we leave that to the judge. We have in our ordinance, it's up to, I think it's $1,000 per instance per day. It could be $500 per instance per day, but ultimately is to be determined by the judge of what that fine is. I want to say in this instance, it was $1,000.
Yeah, I'll say, I mean, is there a comment online?
Sorry. Ben, I just have a question. Because this case, next case go hand in hand, could they be discussed together? And if not, could we put a condition that variances are approved based on the next case's approval?
I don't think I've got everything you said. Could you repeat that, please?
I was asking if these, because this case and the next case go hand in hand, if we could discuss them together, or if not, could a condition be placed that the variances are approved based on the plat approval, or subject to the plat being approved?
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. I mean, we're implicitly discussing the plat anyway, so, I mean,
Okay.
sure. I think the commission should feel free to discuss the merits of the plat along with the variance. What I was going to say is that, I mean, I agree that there needs to be teeth associated with our protections for the historic neighborhood. I don't know that it needs to be in perpetuity, that this piece of property needs to be a vacant lot in perpetuity, but I don't know what that number would be for how long it should remain vacant, or, you know, which is effectively what the penalty is to the.
Well, I'm glad you say that. Let me make a point of clarification as to the 48 months, because I think the way that the Historic Preservation Ordinance reads for unauthorized demolition is that the commission has the ability to put up to a 48-month. It gives them a bit of discretion to be able to say, okay, well, you know, it's been 12 months, and we have a new application that's before us. It gives them some discretion to be able to, but it's up to.
That's historic preservation, right?
That's correct.
I mean, the condition that we put on there was shall not be constructed.
That's correct.
And so at some point, that would have to be changed, whether the piece of property is, there is a new plat
Whether
or
there's a
whatever.
variance that's
Yeah.
granted,
Whatever it
subdivision
is, there would
request,
have to be a
that's correct.
change to that condition. And so I think part of the question before the commission is whether now is the time for that change, or we feel like it needs to remain vacant for a while because of the degree of the infraction.
So, point of clarification to something you said earlier. I think in the report it says 48 months, and I understand there's some leeway there, from the time it was demolished. And I think you commented 48 months after another site plan was submitted. So, which is it?
It could be, I have to pull that provision out, give me 1 second.
I mean, I just want to be clear because it's going to make a huge difference in the way it's submitted. If it's not going to be, we feel like that you get a better product, a better chance of sale to a single family
Yeah.
instead of in a condo
48 months from
association.
the date of the demolition.
Okay,
Which is the end of 2023.
got it. Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Any other questions?
Yeah, did y'all know about, I mean, as the house was being torn down, I mean, what else did you know? Did you guys know when y'all bought the house or bought the lot that it was gonna be, you weren't gonna be able to build on it? I mean, I know Kirk's from the planning commission, but
Certainly. I mean, we knew what the agreement was. I mean, in a perfect world, we wouldn't have to be here because the house would still be there. And as people who live on that street, and want to live on that street for as long as we can imagine, we love that blue house that was there. So, I wish we weren't coming here in that sense. But we did, we were not affiliated with the previous owners who demolished it, but, we were playing in it with our kids in the yard every day, so we saw it happen. We understood that, it had been turned into a condo, those two units, for lack of a better word, with my understanding is the fence line is the only common property. So we knew that it was a condo unit. We knew that demolition had taken place when there was not permission for such a thing to happen. And we knew that, we were buying a condo unit and that it had been the site of an unauthorized demolition. I think our hope as people who live on this street and want to have neighbors on this street was that because the previous owner had been punished for this, that we as new owners were a new use, seeking a new use under new ownership.
it was reactionary, not, I guess to conclude and wrap everything nice and neat. I mean, you guys reacted to something that happened. It was not pre-planned at all.
Oh, no. We didn't watch it be demolished and no, this happened later.
Thank you.
Yeah,
That's fine.
no, it was not precipitated on the other.
Okay.
What is the current state of the lot that was demolished? What does this look like? Are you still living there? Is someone living?
We live next door to this lot. So this portion of the L-shaped lot, there's absolutely nothing there. And at one point, there were actually 3 structures on the lot. There was a 2-bedroom house. There is the brick house that faces Adams, that is currently owned by Dave Van Landingham. There was the blue house, and there was a 3rd structure, a sort of garage apartment. And at one point, the 2 owners ago had renters in all 3 structures. So there had been as many as 3 structures on the property. There is currently nothing on that lot. It's just grass.
Yeah, the 3rd structure was approved for demolition with the Preservation Commission as a part of the case that they also requested demolition of the main house, which was denied, and then they came back with a rehabilitation plan for that house prior to the unauthorized demolition. But that garage apartment was approved for demolition. So that was authorized.
How'd you guys come into purchase of the property? Did you list it for sale, or how did you guys buy it?
A while after the demolition, I guess the owner was ready to sell it, and as neighbors, we thought that it made sense for us to get together and buy it.
I meant specifically, did they put it for sale sign in the yard, or?
No, there was just no. He didn't put a for sale sign in the yard.
Okay. But y'all didn't know John Albritton, that's who owned it, right? It's who bought it from?
I mean, we know him in the sense that, you know, we live in a small town, you know, and see him in passing.
And he just said, hey, you want to buy this house,
Yeah.
this lot?
Yes, not immediately after the demolition, though.
Okay.
This was some months later.
Okay. Any final questions or comments?
What are your intentions? You said you want to build another house. Is this for a rental home? Is
Yes,
this for-
ma'am. We would strongly prefer a single family that occupies the house. Our street is currently a mix of, you know, houses that are owner occupied, long-term rentals, short-term rentals. And our strong preference as the, you know, people who would be building and then looking to sell would be to have an owner occupied single family house. Essentially neighbors rather than renters.
Gotcha.
Anyone from the audience would like to speak? If not, we can entertain a motion individually. Well, let me ask, are there any comments or questions on the second variance for the setback before we move to a vote? All right. All right, is there a motion on case number 3208, Part A, the variance for the lot size minimum?
I would move that we grant the variance. However, construction not to begin until January 1st, 2026, with approval from the Preservation Commission.
Okay, there's a motion to grant the variance, subject to an additional condition that no construction can begin before January 1st, 2026, pending approval from the Historic Preservation Commission. Is that correct? All right. Is there a second? There is a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
All right. Did you get the vote? Takes us to the second variance, which is for the yard standards. Is there a motion on the setback variance?
I move that we grant the variance.
All right, there's a motion to approve the variance. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right. Any opposed? All right, it's granted. Thanks, sir. Don't go too far. Yes, sir. Our next case is 3209, which is the request for the preliminary and final plat for 1 Adams Place for property located at 1418 Adams.
Okay, so same property. Let's see, I won't repeat myself. The plat would allow for a subdivision resulting in 2 lots measuring 0.128 acres for lot 1 and 0.195 acres for lot 2. Staff did recommend denial of this plat because it's creating a nonconformity due to the new lot size of lot 1. The engineering department reviewed the plans and recommended a condition that each lot will only be allowed 1 point of ingress and egress. And so while we did recommend denial of the plat, we put in the note that should the planning commission choose to approve the 2 variances that were the subject of the previous case, staff recommends that approval is for the plan as submitted, that the preliminary and final plat receive the necessary approvals from the mayor and board of aldermen, and that engineering condition that each lot would be allowed only 1 point of ingress and egress.
All right. Is there any additional discussion? I think we covered most of it. All right. If there's not, is there a motion on the plat?
I move that we grant the request.
I'll make a motion to approve.
All right, there's a motion to approve the plat. Is that subject to staff conditions?
Yeah, sorry, it's so delayed, I can't tell what y'all are hearing and what you're not.
Okay. There's a motion to approve subject to staff conditions. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Sorry.
This is gonna be contingent on those variances. They can't move forward with this till the variances are granted in 2026.
Well, that's a reasonable question. I think the plat would be in place, but the variance limits construction to January 1st, 2026.
That's the way I took it.
Me
Yeah.
too.
Okay, I was making sure we're.
Okay. All right, there is a motion and a second. All in favor? And opposed?
Aye.
All right, thank you, ma'am. Our next case is case number 3220. Stites Design Studios has filed a request for a variant. Can someone please ask Commissioner Milam to come back in? Give him a second. Go ahead. Stites Design Studios has filed a request for a variance from section 2.6.4 side yard setback minimum for property located at 1559 La Ronda Road. James?
Good afternoon, everybody. This property is a roughly half-acre lot zoned as suburban residential. Suburban residential has a 10-foot side yard setback requirement. The applicant is seeking a variance from this requirement to allow them to construct an addition on the southwest side of the existing house. So if you were standing looking at the front door, this would be the left side of the house. In order to create a larger bathroom and closet is the purpose of the addition. This would encroach into the 10-foot side setback by about 1.5 feet, 18 inches. The Land Development Code provides for the granting of variances in response to established hardship. The applicant in their application described their hardship as a desire to keep the existing roof line for aesthetic purposes in the construction of the addition. Staff do not find this explanation is sufficient in establishing a hardship which is not self-created, and so we're recommending denial of the variance in this case. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, sir. Questions from the commission? Would anyone from the audience like to comment? Yes, ma'am. It's my house. Please come forward, yeah. If you would just come forward, state your name for the record. Yes.
For the record, if you like the Commissioner Milam.
Commissioner Milam has rejoined the commission.
Thank you.
There. Yeah, we're just looking to build on some more space for closets. And
Could you just state your name for the record first, please?
Carly Barnes.
Okay, thank you.
The plan that the contractor worked up is just a little bit further than the variance. I believe it's 1.67 feet in either direction. And so just a small variance request is what we're looking for today.
Okay. Any questions?
So Ben, I couldn't make this one like expand, like the plans are regular size, but the actual text is small. It's the same on Yolanda's too. I can't read any of the reports.
Kurt, do you, I mean,
I
do
just
you want to look at and read through the report?
No, I just want to understand. You're asking for how much of?
It's 1.67 feet on one corner, 1.67 feet on the other corner.
Is
So
that
4
just
feet.
because the roof line?
Yes, it would line up with the roof line.
Can you do it without that roof line?
We could if we get denied. It's just a small amount. Our neighbor still has plenty of space between us and them, so I thought it was worth asking for.
Any further questions? From the commission? Anyone else in the audience? If not, is there a motion on the variance?
I move that we grant the variance from the side yard setback.
All right, there's a motion to approve the variance. Is there a second?
Second. Second.
There's a second. All in favor? All opposed? It's granted.
Thank you.
Oh, Commissioner Smith, how do you vote?
Favor.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. All right, that brings us to case number 3221. MFM Development has filed a request for 3 parts. A special exception is provided in section 2.6.8, first floor residential and suburban corridor district. B, a variance from section 2.6.8, front build-to-line maximum. And C, a variance from section 3.2.18.4, retaining walls for Trinitas for property located at 814 Claremont Road.
All right. Subject property is a little over 21 acres on the north side of Colonnade Crossing development. This is directly across the street from the Edison apartment complex, which is under construction right now. Applicant is proposing Trinitas. It's a multifamily development, 274 units, 752 bedrooms, targeted towards students. The first is a special exception for first floor residential in the suburban quarter. They want to do 9 fully residential multifamily buildings, and that does require special exception. Applicant states that Colonnade Crossing is a large commercial subdivision where the south half of the property is actively being developed with commercial uses, including offices, service stations, restaurants, retail sales, banks, and medical facilities. And given this large concentrated commercial area, this multifamily development will provide the concentration of households and incomes needed to support this new retail and commercial development. In the initial conceptualization of Colonnade Crossing prior to 2020, these 2 large lots in the back, this and where the Edison is under construction, these were conceived as either going to be multifamily or as big box retail. Multifamily use does make sense at this location, as the lot is away from the main traffic quarter and is, physically downhill considerably from the rest of Colonnade Crossing. And staff agrees with the applicant that the large number of beds will support the commercial developments, and the commercial developments will provide the needed goods and services for the residential, should that be approved. Staff recommends the approval of the requested special exception with the one condition. And for the first variance, the subject property has 3 frontages on Ferndale, Claremont, and Hurricane Lane. The applicant is requesting relief from the front yard build-to-line maximum for the frontage along Hurricane Lane. Suburban quarter has a front yard build-to maximum of 58 with up to 150 allowed by a special exception. The applicant is requesting to be 155 from the property line to the nearest building. The applicant details the significant topographical challenges of that particular frontage, the fact that the lot has 3 fronts, and the desire to retain the existing vegetation as a natural buffer for the residential areas to the north as reasons to grant the variance request. So with this and the next variance request for retaining walls, the applicant is essentially asking to have the northwest side of the property be allowed to function as a side or a rear. The grade differential and the 3 fronts are definitely hardships that are outside of the applicant's control. And for this reason, staff sees this request as reasonable, and staff recommends approval of the requested variance with the condition that the approval is for the plan as submitted. And the final variance is from the retaining wall height maximum. Because that side towards Hurricane Lane is a front yard, retaining walls are limited to 4 feet in height. They're asking to have 12 feet as you would normally get in a side or rear. Again, the applicant is seeking to have this northwest side essentially be treated as a side or a rear. Yes, those 12-foot retaining walls would be allowed. Additionally, because you have such a large grade differential, the walls would really only be visible to the interior of the site. And as such, staff finds this to be a reasonable request. And so staff recommends approval with the condition that approval is for the plan as submitted.
Thank you, Robert. All right, commissioners, we've got three proposals, one for first floor residential and a multifamily portion of a mixed-use development, and 2 variances for relief from having multiple front yards. Questions?
This is what we discussed somewhat last month, I believe, on the variance A. And if I look back on the Edison and with the beds that are here, you're looking at over 1,100 beds in the 2 developments, if I'm right there, pretty close to that. Which is more than, if you go back and look at Pearl 1 and 2, it's more than the beds there. A good bit. I think in many of these that we have, they've been brought to us in the past, we've asked for at least half of the bottom floor to be commercial and the other half accepted as residential, is the way most of them have been done. Would I be off base there?
That is a trend that y'all have had over the last couple of years, yes.
Yeah, I think, Harry, it's a good point, and a lot of times it's in a singular mixed-use building versus this entire development being being built out as mainly commercial. A lot of times the concern is trading off the residential and not getting the commercial space ever constructed. Whereas I think a lot of this development has been constructed with commercial on the front end. Now they're on the back end asking for some of that residential. So, it's a little bit different. You might also add in the Ruby. You said Pearl phase 1 and 2, but there's also the Ruby, which is considerably more, which is in, again, a large commercial piece of property where the front portions, which is most attractive and probably the most marketable for commercial use because of visibility, those are being developed in that capacity, like in Summit. So I think that's a little bit more of a nuance to this style of a development versus a entire residential building inside of this one piece of property along North Lamar, like some of the others that we've had before, where you guys, the commission has imposed that 51% be commercial.
Topography was discussed somewhat on, if you go out there and look at it now, you've got a big slope there, but if I'm looking at the plans correctly, all of that's going to be pretty much leveled out to a degree. Talk to me.
Good afternoon. I'm John Granberry with Granberry and Associates, for the record. And it will not be leveled out. It'll be leveled out as much as we can. I mean, the buildings are, extremely long, so that's going to prevent us from doing a large amount of leveling across the face of the building just from an access standpoint. But the site will all be sloping, from east to west and from south to north. So
Sloping like to the pool clubhouse area?
yeah, to the pool and then back. Everything goes up away from Ferndale.
Let me ask you this, on Flat's building, I think it's building 1 and 2, did you ever consider retail or commercial on the bottom floor of those 2 buildings, since it does back up to commercial, or across the street is commercial?
We did, I believe we did consider that. However, it is, multifamily development, and we do feel like there's a need for that in this area. But there's also that large area of commercial to the south that we didn't want, to try to compete with them, and we knew we'd be providing the necessary, households that would support that area.
Any other questions? Site plan? Yeah, we'll save that. I'll say, from my point of view, I mean, if we're comparing this to the development that we discussed last month in Oxford Farms, I think the difference for me is that, we talked about the concept of a mixed-use development and whether the mixed use within a single building has to hold if there's commercial within the larger development. And in that particular case that we discussed last month, you know, the residential's gotten built and we've been cutting away the commercial repeatedly. I think I agree with Ben here that a lot of commercial's already been built, a lot more commercial is going to be built in this development. And so separating the commercial use from the residential use within the development seems fine to me.
Yeah, having the commercial on the front side is a big deal for me. I mean, I'd be much more opposed to it if it was by itself with nothing around it, but considering that we've got, I mean, all the entire front part. To me, this is the perfect setup for how we should go about things.
If you look at the ideals set forth in y'all's 2037 vision plan, it promotes the walkability and sustainable development, and that's exactly what this as an entirety is.
What are the dimensions of a championship wiffle ball field versus an amateur wiffle ball field?
Well, you would need to have the necessary certifications to play on the championship.
Okay. I don't think I have those.
Yeah.
All right, thanks.
All right. Any other comments from or questions from the commission or from the audience? Any online? All right. If not, is there a motion on, we'll do these one at a time, on the special exception for first floor residential?
Motion to approve, subject to staff conditions.
There's a motion to approve, subject to staff conditions. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Commissioner Smith?
Aye.
Thank you. Is there a motion on the variance from the build-to line maximum? There's a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion.
Give Aaron the second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. And for the variance for the retaining walls height?
Motion to approve, subject to the staff.
Motion to approve, subject to staff conditions. Commissioner Smith, would you like to second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, it's approved.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. That brings us to case number 3222. Brian Hill has filed a request for site plan approval for the Solitude for property located at 1782 College Hill Road.
Okay, the applicant seeks site plan approval for a new residential development. The subject property, which measures about 27 acres, is zoned suburban residential and is located adjacent to the Fieldstone Farms development. The applicant proposes 81 three-bedroom units. The use of the property to build detached residential structures is permitted based on the requirements of the code. The applicant proposes 222 spaces, which is adequate parking for this development according to the requirements of the code. Impervious coverage is allowed up to 60%, and 23.3% is proposed with this development. The landscaping plan meets the requirements of the code, including the necessary foundation plantings, edge plantings, parking lot trees, and frontage trees. And the architecture and building materials are consistent with the requirements of the code. The engineering department provided comment related to access, water and sewer, and stormwater management. And staff is recommending approval of the site plan with 8 listed conditions.
All right. Thank you, Kate. Questions? Yes, ma'am. Please come forward. Please state your name.
I'm Dr. Linda Spargo. I worked at the university for over 30 years, 25 in the chancellor's office, and 6 chancellors. Some of them people still call me Dr. Spargo. And I wanted to come today because I've lived in Oxford for 40 years, and I live at Fieldstone Farms, which is adjacent to this property. Brian Hill is an excellent builder. I have loved living there. I'm not here to oppose him because I'm not allowed to do that really, but I am here to offer some questions about this development. One is I really am proud to come there. When I lived in Brittany Woods. I lived on Sibley. I've lived on 11th Street. I lived at the Hamlet for 15 years, the first time an HOA person. They're not fun. But when my daughter is Hattie Steiner, and she's a realtor, so when the students started adding building there, and Lamar Yard was about to come, I started looking for something else. And we looked all over Oxford. And those of us who live here, which is everyone in this room, I'm a citizen of Oxford. I live here, and this is where my community is. It's a community. So listening to these other developments is so interesting for me because I'm real hungry to hear all this, and I've watched the development for 40 years. But I'm here to talk to you about a neighborhood, like what we really want for our community. And the lucky thing is that we have that at Fieldstone Farms. Many people who've lived in Oxford or have lived in other places actually live there. There are people who are students. It's just quiet, wonderful place. There are trees, it's green. It's just safe. It's just like when I left, it reminds me of Sibley Street or 11th Street. And so I'm kind of bringing that to the table a little bit because that's what we have. We're also actually in the county. Part of it is city schools, but now we're next door to a city property that you're looking at that is next to a county place. And we had a meeting with the county. I'm a proactive person in Oxford. I feel like I have institutional history to bring to all of you, maybe hearing that, but I think that's really why I'm here. I'm not here to really cause confrontation as much as I am to ask some questions about the property and what your thinking is on it too. And to possibly get together with Brian after that. He built my daughter's Hattie Steiner. And so he built her first house at Rosemont, and I was there every day because she was still in Denver. So I know what kind of builder he is. I am proud to bring people to my neighborhood, and I'm proud that it's a neighborhood. We have a group me. We keep up with each other, but we also have two different sets of services. Part of us are Lafayette County Sheriff and Fire, and part of us are city. And their city does sometimes get confused. They've turned onto one of the streets and can't get through. Have to back a truck out. Too many occur. So some of my questions, I also think that Brian has a lot of opportunity in Oxford. This is a piece of property he's bought. He had Rosemont. He bought 5 acres behind us where he's going to add some condos to Fieldstone Farms, and this county gave him the zoning change. And he has another 100 acres behind Fieldstone Farms. So we have a good builder here for the future. The issue for me is what's going to happen to Fieldstone Farms with his adjacent property. I kind of think of him as like this, he's got a lot of pride in his property. I think he's kind of an artist. I support him fully and his ideas. Some of this, though, is going to change my neighborhood, and that's kind of what I wanted to bring up. There's a pool, which seems to be part of the issue for the reason for combining these two pieces of property. And I'm not really sure personally why they're being combined. The HOA we have is will be 232 units, an additional 12 for the condos. And then this will add another 84 units with 3 bedrooms each. So the pool is beautiful. It's a very attractive thing to come and why you want to live there, kind of, although it's not big. I asked Brian about that when I came in. I want him to know that I very much respect what he's doing and that I support a lot of what he's doing, but I also live there. I live in Oxford. So he said it's code, but what I don't understand is the pool is 2 feet deep. And it's 20 by 30 maybe, and then there's another smaller pool that's maybe 20 feet by 10 feet, and there's about 50 to 60 chairs there maybe. If there's 20 or 25 people there, it's full. So, and the clubhouse is locked. We don't have access to it. Our HOA dues pay for the landscaping and the maintenance of the pool, and we won't really have access until Fieldstone Farms is completed, which is, now they still have about 40 or 50 houses to go, plus the condominiums. And if they combine these 2 properties, that's another 3 to 5 years. They're very different properties next door. The other issue I have is the connection point, because the connection point is where our garbage bins currently are. So is he coming into the county? Will he need permission from the county? Does he need to connect the 2?
No, ma'am.
Okay. And so what about density? If there's a room for 2 cars, my house is near there. So if I put trash in my car and to take to the dumpster, do I go through to the other property to turn around and to go back to my house, or do I have to go out to the road to get back to my house? That's one issue I think that's worth thinking about, because if you're coming from the additional property toward Fieldstone Lane, there's a road, Oaklawn Loop is there, which isn't completed yet. One of the issues too is if you live on College Hills County Road 102, there is to the right, there is a hill and a curve. So I asked engineering when I first moved out there 5 years ago. I said, I can't see. So they come and mow it every year. This year when I saw them, I called and said, thank you. Every year I thank them for doing that. So there is a lot more traffic on that road too, just for entrance purposes and all that. I mean, I think I get out of there fine. The other group probably will too. I think the biggest question is why are they connected? Why do they have to be all one HOA? That's just a question we
Yes,
probably are concerned about.
Well, can I just address some of
Yes,
that first?
yes.
So, I mean, I think this commission has no jurisdiction over the HOA,
Right.
right?
That's right.
So
I know.
whatever the requirements of the HOA are, whether the 2 properties have the same HOA, that's completely outside our
Yes, I
control.
understand that.
There are multiple reasons for the connection, I think. One is that the code requires multiple entrances
Yes.
for safety purposes.
And that has
right?
been one of our concerns.
Yeah, and so this provides that second
Okay.
access for fire safety
Okay.
and police and emergency vehicles in
Okay.
general. In terms of the dumpsters, I mean, I think it's a valid question for site plan, whether there's enough room there for people to turn around or
It's just a
whatever, but-
point. It's not necessarily, you can get through there. You'll be able to get through there.
Yeah, exactly. And I think worst case, you could make the northern loop in the other development to get back to your house if you didn't feel comfortable turning around.
Right.
But circulation is an issue.
I agree. And that's one of the issues that I wanted to point out too, just with the city and the county coming, that the Oaklawn, they have gotten stuck out there.
Yeah.
And I do see the benefit that we also have a lot of trees. And so there aren't a lot of the large trees that would be near the road, but you come in, and so there would be, there would be trees along that road that could fall, for sure. I do want to do appreciate the quality that we have in the neighborhood. And I think one of the issues is that connection. The valid points are important. I think we feel protective of the neighborhood we have, and another 200 people having access to it. So that's sort of a very personal, kind of emotional part of this neighborhood. And I think we feel like it. We're just real proud of it. So, okay. Do y'all have any questions of me since I'm next door? Okay.
No, I would just say this also, one other thing, Linda, is like the connectivity also for safety and access. But I think it's important to connect our neighborhoods so that they are actually neighborhoods and neighbors and not gated off subdivisions. And which just kind of goes to your kind of emotional point, you know, and, you know, there may be, you know, I guess 80 of the greatest people in the world move in, you know, you just.
Well, no, that's right. We've talked about that.
And so, you know, we just go by, you know, by what we're given. But anyway, that was just one more point.
Well, I believe it'll be it'll be a good development, good, well-built houses. I also think that to us, it's just more people. And that's part of it. But I think it'll be well-built. And I also, a few of us, we want to work closely with Brian as a smaller group of people maybe to work through some of the issues of even finishing Fieldstone Farms. But I wanted to thank you for your time.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay.
And in terms of it being a lot more people, we're all struggling with that in Oxford. Yeah. Thank you, ma'am. Yes, sir.
For engineering, the lift station's got to be tied into in Fieldstone Farms. I'm sure it was calculated to handle only that, but, so it says public, so does the city of Oxford own that lift station now?
In Fieldstone Farms, yes, we do.
So if they
That's why that we want him to verify that the additional flows this development will generate, our lift station will handle. If not, they will have to upgrade that.
That's my question. Does Oxford have to upgrade it or does?
No, the developer will be responsible.
You want to ask the developer?
What?
You want to ask the developer?
He answered the question.
Okay.
I'm good.
All right. Joey, do you have something?
I didn't know to answer that question.
Okay. Is there anyone else? The previous speaker brought up the HOAs and connecting the properties and traffic. Is there anyone else that would like to speak on any other issues on this case? Yes, sir. Please come forward and state your name.
Hi there. I'm Ron Balducci. I'm a resident at Fieldstone Farms. Two questions. One, can we get a traffic analysis or something that we can judge the amount of traffic? And the reason why I say that is because based on what we've seen as far as what's going to be built, you're going to be throwing another 200, 250 cars coming in and out of there side by side of where we are. I've come down, I've tried to pull out of Fieldstone. To the right, as the hill and the curve, I can't see anybody coming. I pull out, and within a second, they could read the part number on my tail light. That's how fast they're going. We need to do something, especially if we're going to have two sets of cars coming and going. And I threw some numbers together, which I'm not going to bore you with, but if you look at a college town, how many people come and go from their home each day, do the math, and you'll see it's a few thousand times that cars are going to be coming and going out of those two entrances. First problem. Somebody's going to get hurt or killed there. So I would like to see something, some analysis done or something to say that y'all are okay with this amount of volume coming in and out of those two places. First thing. Second is the density of what's going to be built next to us. If I'd like to know what they're going to be, and I'm sure that Brian and them can answer that. If they're going to be condos, are they going to be common use, common area? Or are they going to be cottages and bungalow preserve where we are today? And there's a reason I'm asking that, which I won't bore you with. It's going to be tied to the HOA things. But is that going to be a common area development is all I want to know about that. So those two things. And I could go on about some other things, but they're going to be things that we're going to tie in with questions about the HOA and different things like that. As of now, that when we come in, I've heard many times from many people that come to visit, we have the prettiest entrance in Oxford. We want to make sure that stays the way it is. We want to make sure that once those trees behind where Linda, everywhere we all are on that side, that they don't get torn down. I know we hear they're not going to get torn down, but they get torn down. So we need to talk about that eventually. But the two big things are traffic and density of what is that development going to be, whether it's a condo or whether it's going to be, a different style like what we have. And that's all tied to the questions that we're going to have in the future.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Joey, could you address the ownership and the form, please?
Joey Moore, JM Engineering. The ownership will be a condo development, so you have common open space, pretty typical these days. Regarding, the entrance to this thing, I think we're actually helping the neighbors by adjoining the pieces of property, because the entrance to this development will be further away from that hill to the right, so they will be able to pull out here and see a lot better than what's there now. Correct me if I'm wrong, John, but I think the numbers on what's required for a traffic study, I think we're under that.
That was my understanding.
Yeah, so we're not, but Brian did have, he's telling me he did have a traffic study for Fieldstone when that was completed because of the size of it. But as far as site distance goes, this is an improvement. This gives people a way to pull out further away from that hill where they can't see to the north.
Gotcha. Thank you. Well, you brought up the traffic, so I don't have to. So, any other question? Any comments from the commission?
Just so I'm clear, when you say that they have an option to pull out, you're saying that they would have come through that emergency access in the back of the neighborhood and then, or is there another connection?
No, Fieldstone folks could use this entrance.
Yes, yeah.
It's going to join up here at the front of the neighborhood?
Yeah. No, it's not going to join.
No.
Fieldstone's right here.
Yeah, right, so they give them what we're calling emergency access?
It's not emergency.
Well, it's just a connection, but it's.
Okay, but there's only one connection to Fieldstone, right?
Right.
That's correct. But they could, the people from Fieldstone could come through this development and exit out if they were uncomfortable pulling out at Fieldstone because of that hill to the north.
Maybe we call it emergency access.
Well, we just said one of the reasons for connecting them is to have a secondary access for emergency vehicles. Yeah.
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 I was
Yes,
gonna
sir.
ask
Did you want to speak?
What? So, I was going to ask the other guy, the gentleman that was here a while ago, talking about the traffic concern. What would you change if you could? No, the gentleman that was talking, Mr. Balducci, was talking about concern about traffic, it's might getting killed, something like that, if we're okay with that. I would just ask, what change would you make if you could?
I thought about it, I honestly don't know what we can do because of the distance you've only got maybe over 30 cars, I think, or something there.
Could you just come back up front, please? Just so everybody can hear online.
This seems to be a common problem, so if you guys have come up with some solution, we would all like to hear it.
I didn't get to that part of it as far as the solution because of the distance of plus I've not been to one of these before, so I didn't know that we needed to at least consider what we need to do. First off, I can't, for everyone to be able to see a little better, I don't know how much property the city or the state has on that road where we can maybe trim some of those limbs off of those trees, where we can see what's coming at 70 miles an hour, because I kid you not, nobody goes 40 miles an hour on that road. So that'll help a little bit. I don't know what else. Having, from what I understand, what's going to come into Fieldstone Farms is going to be a little toward the back of that new development. I don't think those people are going to come into Fieldstone Farms to go out. I think they're gonna, go out of their street that they have there. I don't know. I mean, I don't know what the solution would be as far as getting some visibility where we can see and nobody's gonna get hurt. That's the main thing. Do I?
Would you like a roundabout, sir?
Oh, Lord. You didn't hear that from me. You didn't hear that from me.
All right. Thank you, sir.
But I mean, I don't know what the answer is going to be there because you don't have the room. I don't know if there's any more room on the other side of the new development that could possibly be purchased to go out that way a little further. I don't know what the answer would be.
I think we can arrange a roundabout at each entrance if you'd like.
Somebody asked me, could y'all put a stop sign, a three-way stop there? And I said, y'all know you wouldn't do that because but I don't know. I don't know what the answer would be. You see that I'm not a young kid. I'm not in college. I can just imagine of the volume of the people that's going to be in the new development next to us. They're going to all be young. Y'all know you lived here. I've just moved back here 3 years ago. They don't pay attention to what's in front of them or behind them. That's another part of the density of that is going to just throw a lot of danger our way.
Yes.
I don't have a solution though. But
Thank you,
if
sir.
I did, I would sure tell you.
We appreciate it.
Thank you,
Yes, sir.
sir.
Come forward. Please state your name for the record.
Thank you for your time. My name's Tom Mikula. I live in Fieldstone Farms, and I love Fieldstone Farms. What Mr. Hill brought to Fieldstone Farms was what me and my wife, when we retired and came here, that was it. We knew it. It was home. It felt great. We moved our in-laws here. They live down the street. My brother-in-law and sister-in-law live in the neighborhood there. My question is, I'm super glad Mr. Hill's making money and building nice subdivisions. I want him to build a subdivision next to us because I know it'll be a nice subdivision. But why do we need to share a pool? That's such a small thing we can fix right now. That's the contention, is why that? I like to take my grandchild to the pool. It's quaint, it's small, it's quiet. It gets out of hand sometimes, but we all that live there know when that is, school's in, whatever, but you add more units on top of that, we're just gonna get pummeled. And it's not gonna be, as he stated, a sense of place in case number 2057 and 2016 when he presented Fieldstone Farms, a sense of place. That's what we love. He's fixing to make it, I know you say bigger and connecting, that's not better. We love our neighborhood. We knew what we got when we bought it. We saw his plat, we saw what he presented to us, and we all bought into that. Now, we're getting something that wasn't there. So the money we spent on his product isn't quite what we got. And I think I can speak for most people in our subdivision. Nobody doesn't want him to make money. Nobody doesn't want him to build that subdivision because he knows it'll be well. It just doesn't need to be tied to us. I'm an ex-law enforcement officer. Somebody's going to get killed at that intersection. My wife turns right to get out when she needs to go left because she can't do it. I've called the city, had them cut the trees down to the right so you can see. The only way you're going to stop that, I don't know how you redesign it. I feel bad for him having to try to build an entrance there. The people on that road are out of hand. You could write some speeding tickets on that road. I mean, it is very dangerous. I don't know the answer. Those are traffic engineers. Three-way stop, you're going to have a wreck no matter what. Then you're going to be writing stop sign tickets. So, but it's dangerous. I need to go on record though. I mean, 2016, he came in here and he presented a plan to you. We still got muddy ponds that look like snake pits and not the beautiful water that's presented to us. It was a conservation community that said, we're going to try to keep as many trees as possible. At this point now, they're just getting whacked left and right, and it makes every one of us sad. I know he's got to build a home. I know he's got to clear it, but it's just like, I don't know where the accountability is. Yes. And how do you, I know he's a builder. I know he's got a lot of clout in this town. He's earned it, but we're citizens too. And who helps us? Where's the oversight? Where is that? And that's all we're asking for, is hold to what he said in 2016 for our neighborhood. There's no walking paths, there's no access to the golf course that was said, none of, and that was 9 years ago, folks. That's not there, and now we're going to a new community that he's going to tie into our community. Go build the community, make your money. I respect him, we all respect him, we love our neighborhood. He built a beautiful neighborhood, don't ruin it. That's what we're asking. We like our pool, it's just the right size for just the right people. He's added three sets of condos, we're okay with that, we're living with that, we absorbed it. We didn't see it coming, we absorbed it, we're okay. Don't add 87 something more, whatever.
Yes, sir.
That kills us.
Yes, sir.
Unfortunately, I've said my piece, I appreciate it, I just want to go on record, and we as citizens of Oxford and living there would appreciate your help in just keeping our community the way we like it and the way we expected it to be when we bought.
Yes, sir. I appreciate that. Unfortunately, I mean, a lot of what you brought up, the access to the pool, that's an HOA issue, and that's
He
not.
is the HOA. He owns 51%, so what we were given isn't what we can do then. We have, again, there's zero oversight.
Yes, sir. It's not in the jurisdiction of the city, the HOA.
I know there's rules and regulations, but there's the right thing too sometimes.
Agreed.
Have a good day.
Yes, sir. On the other hand, I don't know what was presented in the original site plan, but if there are elements that were in the original site plan that haven't been built, that seems like a code enforcement issue.
It'd be something that for the county, since this was a development that was inside the county, granted to the utilities, so their jurisdiction remains there.
Yeah.
Our code enforcement can't necessarily.
Okay. Is there any other comment or question? Yes, sir, please.
I'm Brian Hill. I'll be happy to answer any questions, clear anything up, issues that were brought up, if y'all have any.
I don't have any more questions. Sounds like y'all might have an interesting HOA meeting, though.
Well, look, just for your purposes, and I know y'all don't have jurisdiction over it, that decision was made by me thinking that it was to the benefit of Fieldstone. The residents don't think that. They don't know the whole picture. It's a financial benefit to them because the new HOA was going to pay into the Fieldstone HOA. I will stand before everybody here today and say if that doesn't work out, I'm willing to build another pool. But I think that the financial benefit to the residents of Fieldstone HOA over the long run, I mean, in all honesty, we've done a budget and we think that the new community will put about $50,000 a year into the Fieldstone Reserve. So
Yes, sir, I appreciate that, but.
It's an HOA issue, honestly.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So, but anyway, no questions. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Hey,
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
He mentioned the trees on the backside, for instance, of Miss Fargo's. Are those?
No.
It looks like from an aerial view, it just goes right up that.
Yeah,
Pasture.
goes right up. I actually prepared something for you a little bit. This is what, the yellow is highlighted, what is being done. The green was an alternative plan that could have been done. I'm sorry.
Here, we can share. That's okay. Share, thank you.
And the orange is what is allowable. So what I highlighted in yellow is what we're doing. That's right up the area that Mr. Fitch currently mows. If you see the green area is the area where we could have built houses, is a phenomenal piece of property. It's extremely flat, easy to build on. I chose not to build on it so that all of the homes in Solitude back up to woods. And like the gentleman mentioned about the beautiful entrance, it is an absolutely gorgeous entrance. If I would have torn the trees down in the green area, it would have taken away from that. I mean, it would have destroyed it. So we're leaving those. I mean, once I record this plat, it'll be in perpetuity and they'll never get tore down.
Thanks, sir. Ben, did you get a copy for the record?
We do. I do have a point of clarification.
Yes.
Brian, you mentioned about the pool.
Mm-hmm.
So, just for clarification, are you committing to a new pool there?
No. If I and the residents of Fieldstone, we're gonna have a meeting. If we decide to build a pool, then I will build a pool.
That'd be a site plan issue.
Well, I understand, and that's, my question is, if he decides to move forward with the pool,
I'll come back to y'all for site plan.
The site plan amendment, yeah,
Yeah,
I just wanted to clarify that.
yeah.
thank you. Any final comments?
No.
Questions? All right, if not, is there a motion on case number 3222 for the site plan approval?
I'll make a motion to approve, subject to staff conditions.
There's a motion to approve with the staff conditions. Is there a second? There's a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. And please let the record show that Commissioner Smith has had to leave the meeting. All right. That takes us to case number 3223. Calicut Lands has filed a request for a site plan amendment for Bella Vita property located at 1657 Amalfi Circle.
All right. Subject property is a little over 12 1/3 acres located between Harlan and Oxford Farms. The applicant is proposing an amendment to the previously approved Bella Vita, which had 30 attached and 31 detached units, now to be a development of 68 attached and 25 detached. It's 93 total units. On the there are two creeks there. So towards the east, the 30 attached units are the same. That's not really changing. Slightly smaller footprints. It'll allow for some on-street parking. The previous 31 detached that was kind of set up in two semicircles of detached that's being reduced to 25 detached units, and then 38 additional attached units would be added. The drives are altered, and there's a cross access to the west that would be added. As for use and parking, the mix of attached and detached is allowed in our district. The detached are all 3 bedrooms and are allowed, and the applicant is proposing the 25% of the attached units to be 4 bedroom, which is also allowed. Go through the parking calculations. 296 spaces are required with up to 370 allowed. Applicant has proposed 302. They're good on coverage with 54%. Access remains the same. They would have an emergency ingress egress off of Harlan, really only to be used as an ingress at any given time. And then the main entrance would be to the south to Oxford Farms, and then they have added a westward ingress egress that would be shared with the subject of the next case, which would be Harlan Creek, I think is the name of that one. So for landscaping, pretty much the only thing that needs to be done with the landscaping is in case 3058, there's a variance that was issued to encroach on the 50-foot blue line stream to the east. Additional under canopy plantings are going to be required for that. Tree mitigation has not changed. You've got 373 2-inch caliper trees are required for mitigation. 202 are showed on the landscape plan, and another 171 have been paid into tree escrow. Building materials have remained pretty much the same, combination of fiber cement and brick veneer with asphalt shingles, and as always, signage is its own separate approval process. Engineering has comments related to access, water and sewer and stormwater management, and staff recommends approval of the requested site plan amendment for Bella Vita with the 11 conditions that are in your staff report. Joey's here if you got any questions.
Thank you. Questions from the commission? I have a question. Joey, please. I don't really have any issue with the development. I'm just curious, most of the drawings show the creek ditch, whatever you want to call it, on the east side of the property.
Yeah.
coming up onto the entrance road from Harlan Drive, and I'm just curious, is this going to flood?
So I'm gonna say this because this was the previous project that you guys approved was designed by another engineer.
Sure.
So it was a concern from when he bought the project from them was those. So we went through all that. They stated that the buildings meet the code, which is, it's got to be, correct me if I'm wrong, it's either 18 or 24 inches above the flood line. County's different by 6 inches, whichever one y'all's is. So we talked to the stormwater engineer here in town who lives down this road, and he was concerned about the road flooding, and Andy was concerned about those units along the ditch flooding. So all the documentation says that we are good, but what we went ahead and did is those units, those attached units that are running along the ditch right there, we're gonna build those up an additional 3 feet.
Okay.
So they're gonna have steps up in there just as a safeguard. So the parking lot will be the same elevation as they had it designed previously, but instead of having those flat pads, we're just gonna build them up and block them up another 3 feet. That way we can all sleep at night. But my understanding is that that pipe that goes underneath Harlan Drive to the north is undersized, and that water's coming over the road, and that just scares us all. So we're just gonna try to do everything we can to eliminate any major damage to the units.
Okay.
But my understanding that even the parking lot is above that limit, so.
Okay, I appreciate that. I also appreciate the connection with Oxford Way to the south, and that's an impressive box culvert that you got there.
Sure, was that you out there looking at today?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, yeah. And so that's been pretty much done. They've got to take out the temporary ditch, and I think that some construction equipment in there, but, he bought this with the plan that he was going to build the approved plan, and then when the property to the west came available by another developer here in town, has purchased it. So they've come to the agreement to say, hey, how can we get this and keep traffic off of Harlan? And so during that redesign of doing that cross access to the west, it was, let's see how many, if we can get the potential of other units out of here by trying to pay for all this additional infrastructure to connect.
Sure.
So that's why we're here. I mean, we're still not maxing it out, but, we got to pay the bills anyway somehow.
Thank you. Any other questions? Anyone from the audience or online? If not, is there a motion on case number 3223 for the site plan amendment?
I move that we grant the site plan amendment with the staff conditions, 11 staff conditions.
All right, we have a motion to approve, subject to staff conditions. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right.
Thank you.
That brings us to case number 3224. Walker & Walker Enterprises has filed a request for site plan approval for Harlan Creek for property right next door.
Literally right next door. So the property is a little under 5.5 acres at the end of Harlan Drive, directly west of Bella Vita. The applicant is proposing a 48-unit RCID with a mix of 3-bedroom attached and 3- and 4-bedroom detached units to be called Harlan Creek. Again, the mix of attached and detached units meet the minimum 25% detached unit requirement. The applicant has proposed fewer than 25% 4-bedroom units, so no special exception for that. Going again through parking calculations, 152 spaces are required with up to 190 allowed, and the applicant has proposed 171. They also comply with coverage with 59.3. This property will have 2 points of access, one directly onto Harlan on the north, and then a cross access to Bella Vita. Additionally, a cross access to the west has been provided should, something be built on the north side of the creek over there. Landscaping meets the LDC requirements. Tree survey for tree mitigation was conducted, shows 145 significant heritage. We're working with the applicant to nail down the exact numbers for mitigation. I think that calculations they had were significantly higher in terms of required mitigation than would be necessary. So they're going to get better news than what they prepared for on that. Building materials and architecture would be similar to other developments that this applicant has proposed, including South Grove and Chickasaw Creek. Primary facade materials be brick and siding. Engineering has comments related to access, water and sewer, and stormwater management. And staff recommends approval of the requested site plan with the 7 conditions that are in your staff report. And again, Joey.
Thank you, Robert. Questions on the site plan? I have a question. Yeah, Joey. So it connects to the property that we just talked about.
Sure.
Then on the west side, there's a potential connection.
So you guys haven't seen this yet because it's in the middle of design yet, but the reserve phase 2, which is under construction to the west here. So there's a ditch, the same ditch that the box culvert crosses, kind of separates the reserve phase 2 from the north and south. So this connection would give the ability for that piece of property on the north side of the ditch to be connected. So but I'm also going to tell you that we are working on putting in another box culvert on the reserve to where all these properties will connect back to the reserve, and there'll be a way to get out to the new road or to Oxford Way down Old Taylor Road. So you will have basically 1, 2, 3, and you count 4 if you talk about reserve phase 2, what's out there now. You have 4, basically 4 communities all having, access within each other to be able to get to South Lamar, Old Taylor Road, Belt Drive when the hospital road gets built. So you haven't seen it yet. It'll be turned in here in probably in the next couple of weeks, but that's kind of the plan on that corner, that north side of the ditch there.
Okay. So there'll be a connection into the north side of the reserve, and then there will be a box culvert to connect that with the road to the west.
Yeah, and that was always kind of the plan. I don't have the site plan here from me, but if you go back and look at the reserve phase 2, there's a gap that's just kind of random in there, but that's what that's for, is for a potential for the road. It was just whether or not this property ever became available, everything got tied together, so to be able to develop on that side of the ditch, because with the number of units between this and the reserve phase 2 that we're planning, you need 2 points of access as well.
Okay. Any other questions from the audience? Yes, sir. Please come forward and state your name for the record.
I'm Alan Smith Jr. I live at 1000 Harlan Drive. My property borders these guys. My concern is, I bought this property in 1999 from Miss Emily Lou Harlan, who developed the whole subdivision. I live on top of the hill. I got all the dirt. I want to keep the dirt. What I'm asking is for 3 control points to be added on this shared property line that I have, so we can monitor vertical and horizontal slip if any happens. And I also do not like the Gideon wall that y'all have on the other property. The retaining walls that are made out of steel and filled with the rocks.
Gideons are no longer allowed inside the city.
Yeah.
I'm surprised they were allowed then. So, great. I look forward to seeing your engineered drawings on the retaining wall. I look forward. I direct your attention to the topography that you have in front of you. This is a steep hill.
Mm-hmm.
They're gonna need every piece of dirt they can get. We must protect this dirt from sliding at all costs.
Yes, sir.
If I end up down there in y'all's project, I ain't paying no money.
Joey, do you already have plans for the retaining walls that you're probably going to need?
Yeah, it's not very
Okay.
I'll make sure he does, sir.
All right. Yes, sir.
I'm not sure of this project.
Okay.
Well, what I'm seeing, if you look at the topo, and I'm certainly respect your professional opinion, but if you look at the topo, there's little feet that come out around this subdivision. If you drive over there, all the trees are gone. You can clearly see it. Now, a lot of dirt, you don't have, sir. You may have enough, but a lot you don't have to spare. Please be real careful. This is some of the most erodible soil on the face of the earth. And I'm on top of the hill with a 5,320 square foot house. I'd love for you to buy it. I'll damn sure anything off. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Appreciate your time.
You have a good one.
Just as a point, just for this and the previous case, we did have a letter of objection from one of the neighbors.
On the previous case? Okay.
Oh, one more thing, I am really glad that they added some more access to it. We've been asking for that for 45 years also.
Thank you, sir. Glad we could finally do something.
The comments that we received, though, y'all received it.
Yeah, we received that one by email as well. Okay. All right. Any other comment on this case?
Well, the good thing about your retaining wall, it'll be original cut, so they'll cut into it, so it's a stronger retaining wall.
It's maxed out from what I see, it's 12 foot tall.
That's correct.
All right. Is there a motion on case number 3224 for the site plan? Is there more discussion?
I make a motion to approve subject to the 7 stated staff conditions.
Okay. We do have a motion to approve subject to the staff conditions. Is there a second?
Second.
There is a second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Keep them honest.
I will.
Leave that.
Our next case is case number 3225. AAA Holdings LLC has filed a request for site plan approval for AAA Holdings North Lamar for property located at North Lamar Boulevard.
The property measures just over 3.5 acres. It's on North Lamar. It's just south of the three-way. The property is zoned traditional neighborhood business, and it's undeveloped. The property technically fronts North Lamar, but it's a flag lot with just about 50 feet of frontage along North Lamar. It widens significantly once it stretches beyond the existing neighborhood businesses, Napa Auto Parts, and the 3-bay shopping center. So the proposed development consists of 27 3-bedroom townhomes. Y'all might remember this from a prior request for a special exception that y'all considered back in March. The density is regulated in the TNB. The density is regulated in 39 bedrooms per acre. The proposal of 81 total bedrooms is well within the density limitations. Property has been subject to considerable discussion in the past in 2017 and 2018. A copy of those staff reports were provided inside of this report. 2274, which was a site plan for a development on this particular site, which was also considered as part of an appeal to the Mayor and Board of Aldermen. And as a result of case 2274, there was an agreement that was previously made between Mr. Payne, the applicant in this instance, and Mr. Don Brewer, the owner of the Napa Auto Parts store at the time, regarding necessary improvements to the city right-of-way to assist with the project getting off the ground. The previously approved site plan expired, and subsequently, Napa did not move forward with any of the necessary improvements in the specified timeline. So the use, first floor residential, received a special exception from the commission. This will be an RCID ownership mechanism, and there is a condition of approval that staff receives that request for a special use prior to the issuance of a certificate of occupancy. As noted, the site is a flag lot with the development positioned a considerable distance from North Lamar. And as a result, there is a need for a variance in this particular instance. Basically, given that it's a flag lot, it's difficult for a building to be sited on that small 50-foot wide. So staff does anticipate supporting that variance request. Again, the development consists of 27 3-bedroom units. Proposal indicates 90 parking spaces in the development, which is about 9 more than what's required by code. It does comply with the lot coverage requirements and the building height also. It's a 2-story building with a maximum height below 38 feet. The architecture and building materials certainly comply with the land development code requirements, sidewalks and connectivity, and engineering did provide comments regarding access that may impact sidewalk and connectivity to the site. Plans, they do not indicate a sidewalk along North Lamar Boulevard, despite one being required. The plans do indicate a sidewalk from North Lamar into the development on the east side of the property. This development also proposes connectivity with the adjacent properties along North Lamar in addition to the undeveloped southwest portion of the site. The proposed landscape design meets all the standards related to frontage trees, buffers, and foundation plantings. Oxford Utilities may require the relocation of several parking lot tree islands to minimize conflicts with transformers in the development. There is not tree mitigation required for this site. The engineering department did provide comments related to access, which I'm sure will be subject of some discussion, water and sewer, stormwater management, and the site plan drawings as submitted show none of the off-site improvements recommended by engineering staff, and as such, staff recommends denial of this site plan as currently proposed. Should the commission choose to approve the site plan, engineering has listed several conditions in addition to planning. John Crawley's here, can answer any specific questions that you might have related to his comments that he provided. Engineer and architect for the project are here in addition to counsel for the applicant. I believe the applicant might need to be on virtually.
Thank you, Ben.
Yeah, you bet.
Any questions for staff before we hear from the applicant? Okay.
Yeah, real quick, the, I'll take back saying it real quick. So why are there two, I noticed that there's final, on the stated staff conditions, there's final approval for stormwater management, and then there's a stormwater management must be certified. Why do we have that additional, what necessitated that?
Well, one is for the actual design of the stormwater management facility, which has not been completed yet or approved yet. The other is just our standard comment when it is built and constructed in accordance with the approved plans, it has to be certified by the engineer before we will sign off on certificates of occupancy. So that's why there's two there.
Have y'all had some issues with the stormwater management plan or everything?
Well, it's just going through the review process. We haven't approved it yet.
Gotcha.
So in a way, it's kind of like an as-built.
Yeah.
Any other questions for staff? All right. Anyone from the applicant?
Okay. Stuart Paval with Develop Design Studio, with the architect on the project. So this one it comes down to the off-site work that the applicant is being asked to do on the Napa site. Lots of discussion on our end over this. Applicant initially was very unhappy about this. I understand the history of it. Ultimately, the issue that is most concerning to the applicant isn't so much the cost and the work, not that he wants to spend the money and do the work, but the entanglement between him and an unrelated neighbor that this creates, and potential conflict that the city is sort of putting this applicant in the middle of. The city wants these improvements based on public safety concerns. Napa is absolutely not going to want this. They're happy with their parking lot the way it is. And so it ends up putting this applicant in a position where they're kind of guaranteed conflict with their neighbor over this. Yes, it is, all the work is in the right of way. So in theory, Napa can't say anything about it. However, we know anyone can sue for any reason and gum up the works. So lots of conversations today with applicant, with city engineering. I think we have a solution that can avoid this conflict. The applicant is willing to do this. City engineering, John has said that he's willing to entertain this. So what we would offer so that the applicant does not have to do this work and get in this entanglement and conflict is that the applicant put up a bond for a period of time that the city can call in within a period of time, and I'll go through what our offer is for the condition. And as Ben said, Walt is here in case he needs to do lawyer speak with Paul on this. But I think we've got it, I mean, I think this is a pretty good solution. So here's the offer, and here's, I'm going to read the condition as we might see it, and then let's have discussion on it. So it'd be a condition number 9. They would say, a performance bond of amount equal to the average of 2 quotes, one by each party, city and applicant, to lapse after 1 year, to be paid to the city for them to do the work, the city to do the work. The quotes are to be based on plans drawn by JM Engineering and approved by city engineering. So that's what we're hoping. We can put a condition of approval on this, that the city can do the work and the city can deal with the conflict with Napa and not this applicant.
John, thoughts?
Stuart and I talked about that this afternoon. I think maybe the only difference you and I originally talked about, I think originally you threw out 36 months. I think you said 12 months.
Yeah. I mean, the idea behind 12 months is that this project is going to be asking for COs in about a year. And so, you know, we feel like that's the time frame that the city should be doing the work or not, is when we're asking for the COs.
I thought 3 years was too long, so.
Okay.
I mean, yeah, 12 months is.
Reasonable. The other question I do want to ask is, your comment did not say sidewalk. I want to make sure this does not include sidewalk. We're just talking about fixing a safety concern, not improving their property with a sidewalk.
It's just the safety concerns of the egress and egress.
Yeah. So not building the sidewalk, which would make them code compliant, but that's not this applicant's concern.
We would probably, we're gonna build a sidewalk there eventually.
Right, yeah.
So. Is there related to my comment about sidewalk?
No, the sidewalk within the 50 feet is to be done. I think Joey's already revised drawings. Yeah.
Just making sure.
Yeah.
I have
Joey?
a question about that. Are we, the safety issue, I think Stuart discussed it today, could be achieved by basically putting a green strip in there? You know, if we're not gonna do the sidewalk, are we doing curb and gutter, or are we just cutting out a section of sidewalk?
We would require curb and gutter.
Okay.
All right. I'm not fully understanding what
What the issue is?
what the issue is, because as I look at the plan, it looks like the curb and gutter there
It's not in
goes
the
all the
plan.
way out.
It's not in the plan. So the issue is whether the curb and gutter extends in front of Napa or not.
And to be clear, we would love to not do any of this. I mean,
We understand.
you know, we
Yeah.
came in prepared to fight this and say this
Yeah.
is unfair. It's not right to force this entanglement between.
So,
But if there's a time value of money and we just need to get this thing done and move on, this is the offer. If this commission says, hey, don't make them do any of this, we're walking out.
we appreciate the offer. I think it's a reasonable compromise, but, so to clarify,
Still don't understand, you give
so
me a shot.
so the plans as shown in the application
Okay.
are strictly what is required in the code, correct? I mean, in terms of the curb and gutter that's drawn.
Correct, strictly meeting code. Yeah.
This piece of property is a flag lot on a stretch of North Lamar
Yeah, I know,
that's completely
I know.
uncontrolled
I know
in terms of
the history
access.
of it.
And so
Lawsuits.
this is going to introduce a fair amount of traffic at a fixed point with no control around it, correct, John?
Correct, yes.
And so the proposal from engineering is to extend the curb and gutter for how far?
It's about 250 feet, 250 feet. Yeah.
Either way or just in front of Napa?
Well, there's already, you know, controlled access to the south.
South,
This would
okay.
just
So
be-
just in front of Napa to extend that curb and gutter, mostly to add some safety in terms of access to Napa not coming out right there where all those residents are going in and out.
Basically, we leave Napa with a 24-foot wide gap, where that's all they would have to come in and out of that.
Thank you, that's what I'm trying to figure.
And it's going to be a big fight.
Yeah, that's good luck.
Get ready.
Yeah.
They're going to.
Well, we went through this the first time this property came up, and Napa and the property owner came to some resolution.
I know it's been said that they have an agreement. Signed? Okay, I've been told otherwise, but.
Yeah, it took quite a while. And then ultimately,
And that
nothing
owner
came
is
of
no
it.
longer
Yeah,
alive, I don't think,
I don't know.
or at least not the current owner. So there's a new owner.
So, yes, this has all happened before, and apparently it will all happen again. The same conflict existed in 2016, 2017, right? And I think that the applicant, who's the same applicant at the time, raised the same concerns, and engineering was pretty adamant that unless there is control of that access point, and at the time it was a storage unit that was proposed, it wasn't residential units. And we had the same discussion. I think the infrastructure that was drawn up by maybe the applicant's engineer looked different. There may have been a sidewalk attached to it at some point back in 2017. But whatever the case was, it would be on the right of way. It would cut into what Napa viewed as their parking, right? There's discussion about how are we going to get trucks in and out. You know, this is the type of traffic that we have. Ultimately, what happened is that the site plan was approved. An element of the site plan was infrastructure that included curb and gutter and whatever else it included, running that 250 feet in front of Napa with an ingress and egress point up at the north end of that. Okay. Correct. And as a part of that, there was an agreement between the Napa owner and the applicant that owned the back lot that for a period of 18 months after the approval of the site plan, which was the effective time of the site plan, that's for how good how long it lasted, that once work began on the project, the storage units in the back piece of the property, that the owner of Napa would take responsibility for the cost of the infrastructure improvements in the right-of-way in front of Napa, with part of the concern on Napa's part being that it wouldn't happen immediately, right? That they would have that year and a half worth of buffer time to adjust their plans, figure out how they were going to get trucks in and out. But with the assumption that the project is moving forward, once construction starts, by the end of that 18-month period, Napa understands we've got to make a new plan for our parking lot. We will move forward with the cost. So that's how this same sort of issue was to be resolved then. Now, the trick was that the agreement said if within 18 months it's not starting, Napa no longer takes responsibility for doing that because the project's not going forward. Engineering's comments are moot at that point. But that was how it was resolved at that point. As long as I'm standing up here and everybody has to listen to me. I just heard about the performance bond thing a few minutes ago, and I certainly don't want to throw cold water, and Walt's the most reasonable guy in the world to work with, as long as he agrees with me. We'd need to figure out exactly how the bond worked. I mean, I don't guess it would be a traditional performance bond if we were anticipating that it was definitely going to be called for construction at some point, right? It's not a risk.
I guess this one wouldn't definitely be called for construction either if they never build this project.
Well, right, but that's not really the risk that you're contemplating with the bond, performance bond. I mean, it would be we could figure out some other form of payment guarantee, and maybe performance bond is just not the right way to. But yeah, some kind of surety, some kind of cash bond. Something like that, figured out. The other thing that Ben reminded me as we were coming up here is we're in the middle of starting a corridor study for North Lamar, and so the time frame may want to take that into account in case we get however many months out we get, and we get recommendations about what that needs to look like, so we're not putting in infrastructure to have it ripped out later. And I'm really just repeating what he said at this point. I don't know what that time frame is. I mean, so I just wanted to give you all the benefit of that history. This would all be in the right of way. I mean, we can authorize the improvements to be made, however John thinks they're appropriate.
Paul, since we have you here and you have to answer my questions, do you have alternative wording for a condition that would leave it appropriately open to find the proper mechanism?
I would just say from the owner's perspective, obviously, we don't want it to go on 10 years,
Oh, yeah, I mean, it's, the timeframe we can talk about, I mean, I think personally, 18 months sounds better than 12 months, because 12 months in project time is not very long at all, but, I mean,
But we're talking about waiting until North Lamar corridor improvements, that could be
yeah, I understand.
years and years. So.
Yeah,
Well, and from my perspective, to answer your question, that's really neither here nor there. That was something I said.
Sure.
I said it was whispered in my ear. I have, I'm sure we could figure out some wording. I don't want to speak for the applicant and just make something up on the
Yeah.
spot. I mean, I know y'all have to come back for a variance. Is that going to be on next month? I mean, if we had a couple of weeks to talk it through, I'm sure we could, like I said, just sitting here thinking of it on the spot, I'm not sure I know, unless Walt wants to swoop in and,
well, let me just say, this.
Interrupt.
How does the applicant feel about tabling it until we can work out the language for that condition?
Applicant doesn't love tabling it, but,
Sure. I mean, you have to come back for a variance anyway, correct?
correct, just, the feeling is the more time that people have to talk and think, the more chances
Sure.
that things change. National gets involved, I think the applicant would prefer, even with a complicated condition or a contingent liability even in a condition, would prefer to try and bang this out now, come back for the variance that we feel is fairly obvious.
May I try to word a
Absolutely.
motion?
Kirk, real quick, let me jump in real quick. John, I think the proposal was, what did you say? About two quotes?
The average of two quotes, one from the city and one from the applicant.
I mean, could we come up with a basis for drawing something up that we could get quotes on? And do you think that's a reasonable way to go about coming up with a price for that?
I do. So most of the time, when we're evaluating, we'll respond, we get the quotes and then we 150% just to cover ever how long it is in the future. So something along those lines, we would anticipate doing here as well, just to be sure, that spike 12 months, that the cost is covered to do that. But yes, as far as the improvements, I mean, they've already drawn points. So it's not something that should take long for us to, come up with a plan and then do a cost estimate for it.
Yeah, that all makes sense. The other thing, as far as time goes, I mean, the effective time of the site plan is still going to be 18 months. That seems like the most common sense time frame for whatever surety or guarantee is in place, because we know at the end of those 18 months, the applicant will have decided, I am or I'm not going to pull permits, right? And that's what we did last time.
Mm-hmm.
So, Kirk, I didn't cut you off.
No, that's fine. I'll do whatever you guys want.
I don't want to derail the momentum we have here, but quick question about how it's actually designed. I mean, so is, because I don't want everybody getting figured out, then Napa get mad, because it's not, you can't get his big trucks in or out. It looks like, is this design that is drawn right here on this, is this what would be built if we move forward?
What sheet is it?
This is page 57 of 70. It's going to be the grading and drainage plan, just happens to be the one I'm looking at. I'm just looking at the design of where it comes into Lamar. And I was looking at, thinking about big trucks going in and out, and so that was my question. I mean, from a safety standpoint, I don't know what check boxes have to be done, but I mean, he would probably be happy. It's a big wide parking lot. If we just cut that median in half and I didn't have that whole open to the north, basically, didn't have that whole big open area. Is that going to still break the rules of what we're trying to accomplish?
Without looking at it, are you talking about?
He's talking, right now, they only have that 24-foot access at the north end, and he's talking about giving them a lot more of an access than that 24 feet.
So 24 is not a number that I'm dead set on right now. Just not 250. I'm a little open to, a few feet if we need a little extra radius to swing a truck in, back, whatever. But the principle would be definitely to close up 250 feet.
just real quick, and John, you may or may not know the answer to this, and I guess we can pull up, how close is what we're looking at there to what was drawn in 2017? Because the then owner of Napa signed off on that, that was part of the agreement.
Yeah, I mean, this, so the difference here, and you know, they're showing a pretty wide access off of the proposed roadway going back into the property. So theoretically, what one could do, if one were driving a trailer, for instance, you could pull into the north, swing through the parking lot and exit out of this proposed intersection that they're proposing to build by the plan that was agreed to previously. Now, they are showing connections to the north and the south off this current plan, if I remember correct. I don't know if that is something
That's right.
But so theoretically, you're gonna have the access to the north, they can come in, and rather than having to swing around or back up or whatever, they can just come right out on this road right here as a different means of egress.
And this whole discussion is also, in our opinion, part of the problem. We're designing a traffic situation for someone who's not related to this application or this landowner. So I'm not even sure that we in our design team should even be designing this, because we don't know what their needs are, what their wants are. We don't know. I mean, we have a plan that we could pull Paul in if we wanted to, that his office drew in 2016, but we don't really know what it is that they want and what they're going to be happy with or what they're going to scream bloody murder.
Well, they're not going to be happy, period.
Right.
Well, but under,
We know what they signed off on last for. I mean, that's.
yeah.
So it's like we're kind of putting a performance bond in place for this. It's got to, your property's, it's a flag lot. You got to connect to the city, so it is part of the project. I mean, trying to design how you're going to connect to Lamar.
Well, but, yeah, but it's also extended. Yeah, exactly.
I agree.
Listen.
Folks, Walt Davis here. I think we've had some good discussion here, but I think the point of the current question is, what is going to be an appropriate value for the amount of money posted by my client, regardless of what the ultimate design is? What's the most reasonable way to get there? And I think surely using the previous design that was proposed might be an adequate way to get that done, even if it's not the ultimate design of the roadway.
Sure. Yeah, I agree with that.
Okay, yeah.
But I think, so here's my question for Ben or Paul, I'm not sure who, but I don't know what the proposal, minus this issue, I don't know what the proposal would be from the commission yet on the case. Assuming that proposal were in favor to approve the site plan, my question is, is there a way that we can make a conditional approval where the condition is on the city and the applicant coming to an appropriate agreement on a mechanism to finance the improvements in the city right away? So leave it open. As long as y'all come to an agreement on how that needs to be done, we're just agreeing that the applicant is going to front the money, the city is going to do the work.
If that doesn't happen, let's say conversations break down, we can't come to an agreement, is that back for a site plan amendment? Is that what we would be talking about?
I just think you go back for new approval.
Yeah, you would just come back for, new approval.
But not back through 45 days of review?
No.
Okay, just back before the commission to
Yeah.
discuss that condition.
Yeah.
Walt, do you see any issue with that, sort of open-ended?
I mean, I feel like we pretty much have an agreement, regardless of whether you call it a bond or a cost posting or whatever language you want to use. I think there seemed to be consensus over the 18-month period. All we're worried about is the language that we use for the agreement, although the agreement itself seems to be, set.
Okay.
But otherwise, I don't see any issue.
But Walt, I think that, like, y'all are very close together, and I think that if we have a more specific agreement, based on the previous plan agreed to and a budget, then we we make it a more solid agreement that will be harder to challenge in the future.
Yeah, I didn't take from Walt that he was proposing that we just approve it based on.
No, I didn't either. I didn't
Okay.
either. I didn't
All
either.
right.
No, no.
All right.
I think we can get there. It's just, Paul and I haven't put our heads together, and I'm not there, so we'll get that done right now.
All right. So do we have any language for a potential?
Ben and Paul seem to be
Are y'all working on it?
confirming.
Paul, what might that condition sound like?
So the condition would be that the applicant and city staff agree on a mechanism for the design and construction of right-of-way improvements along North Lamar, along the subject site in Napa, whereby the applicant would guarantee payment of those costs.
Okay, we have that recorded at least.
Timeframe?
That's part of the agreement, I think.
Right.
Yeah. But for the sake of starting the discussion, 18 months.
Yeah,
And then-
I expect that's what we
Yeah.
would be looking at.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah, there wouldn't be any reason for us to go longer than that because the site
Yeah.
plan wouldn't be good after that.
Exactly. Okay. All right. So we have a ninth condition out there for people to consider. Is there any further discussion on the case?
Only as a housekeeping matter that, we're willing to accept all the other conditions, including the construction of the sidewalk, curb and gutter along the frontage that does not include the actual driveway.
Okay. Thanks, sir.
And also, I know this is unusual for y'all to give a site plan approval with a variance still hanging out there, so we appreciate staff and you all's flexibility, knowing this is kind of a slam dunk variance. And I know normally you would not do that. You'd say, we're not granting site plan approval.
Don't jinx yourself.
No, I'm saying we appreciate that flexibility.
Hawks on your house.
All right.
So thank you.
Is there a
Yeah.
motion? Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. Is there anybody from the audience who'd like to speak on this case? Yes, absolutely. Anyone online? All right. Now, is there a motion on the site plan for case number 3225?
I'll make a motion to approve, subject to the stated staff conditions, in addition to the staff condition, or the condition that it is conditional upon.
Just use this.
Upon the agreement that the city attorney put into the record.
Okay, subject to the ninth condition. Okay. Is there a second?
I know.
Is there a second?
Second.
There is a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Site plan is approved conditionally. You're welcome. That brings us to case number 3228. The Pearl at Oxford Commons LLC has filed a request for two parts. A special exception is provided in section 3.6.9, front yard setback maximum, and B, a variance from section 3.2.18.2, retaining wall height for the Commons entertainment block for property located at 801 Sisk Avenue.
So the subject property is located northeast of the intersection of Sisk Avenue and Commonwealth Boulevard. As JR mentioned, the applicant proposed to build the Commons entertainment block, which features an outdoor area as well as 3 commercial buildings. Also, this case, subject to case number 3227 for site plan approval. A different iteration of this project on the same property received a special exception for the front yard build-to line maximum and a retaining wall variance, similar to what we're hearing tonight, as well as site plan approval in August of 2021. The plans proposed here are significantly altered since those approvals were granted, and so that's why the applicant returns to request new approvals for the updated project. So I'm going to talk about the special exception for the front yard setback maximum first. The applicant seeks approval to locate the proposed building 94 feet from the right-of-way line which is 36 feet beyond the 58-foot front yard setback maximum prescribed by the code. The applicant notes that the proposed plan is part of the greater Commons Master Plan development and states that the setback will be generally in keeping with the other buildings along Sisk. Staff is supportive of this request as it maintains the rhythm of the existing buildings on Sisk, and it's similar to the previously approved request for the same site by this commission. So staff is recommending approval of the requested special exception with 2 conditions. And then for item B, which is the variance from retaining wall height, the applicant seeks to exceed the front yard maximum wall height of 4 feet. One wall would exceed that maximum by 2.39 feet for a total maximum wall height of 6.39 feet. The applicant states that the topography of the lot is unique as the location was previously a stormwater detention pond, but has been filled to be consistent with the elevations within the adjacent developed area. The applicant also noted in their application that all of the retaining walls, including this wall, will not be visible to the public from the adjacent city streets and will not be a visible detriment to the proposed site. Staff is also supportive of this request. As the site currently sits below Sisk and Commonwealth, the retaining walls are needed to allow for continuity and pedestrian activity between the site and the rest of the commons. I will note that the land development code stipulates that retaining walls in excess of 6 feet shall provide for evergreen shrubs that are at least 4 feet in height at the time of planting. So we've added that as a condition of approval since that was not present in the drawn plans. So staff is also recommending approval of the retaining wall height variance with 2 conditions.
All right, thank you. Any questions for staff or for the engineer? Paul has waited so patiently. Surely we have some questions for him. All right, any questions from the audience, such as it is?
Well, I'll ask you a question, Paul. What is this, the bottom left corner, you don't have to come up, but is this gonna be like a green space or what?
Southwest corner.
Southwest. I know it's like an amphitheater originally, I guess, but now is it, that's my question, is it gonna be?
Right, the southwest corner will be, well, partially parking and a vehicular access around the southwest portion of that corner, but between that and the 3 buildings that are proposed, we're looking at a green lawn space. I think it'll be artificial turf, but a green space, gathering area with fountains and.
Championship football?
Yeah, come on.
Maybe. I don't think so.
You never know.
See the room for it. Can't have a championship.
All right, well, any further questions? If not, is there a motion on the special exception for the front yard setback maximum?
I move to make a special exception with the 2 staff conditions.
There's a motion to approve the special exception subject to the 2 staff conditions. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right. And is there a motion on the variance for the retaining wall height?
I'll move that we approve, subject to any staff conditions.
Motion to approve with any conditions. Is there a second?
Second.
Terry has a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. That brings us to the site plan. Case number 3227. The Pearl has filed a request for site plan approval for the Commons Entertainment Block.
Okay, same property. As I mentioned before, there was a site plan for a similar project approved for the site in August of 2021. Use requirements, restaurants or special uses in the suburban center district. Additional standards include requirements to follow the sound ordinance and the times allowed for outdoor service if the restaurant sells alcohol. Parking. Restaurant uses require 1 parking space per 100 square feet of patron area, additional 1 space per 100 square feet of tavern area. Retail also requires 1 per 300 square feet of gross floor area. So you saw in the report, I included a table. The areas around the site have been approved and constructed with parking infrastructure. This development technically requires 90 spaces and 63 are provided. However, there are additional spaces of the adjacent developments to adequately provide parking, and the proposal provides shared parking and access easements between all 3 of the lots. So the total required parking for this whole area, if you want to call it that, is 721, and the provided parking is 772. So while this specific site is not adequately parked, with the shared agreement, there's plenty of parking in the area. The coverage is a little bit over at 80.5%. Staff has spoken with the applicant's engineer, and that's planned to be reduced to an acceptable amount, which is 80%, so they're only slightly over. The landscaping, building materials all meet the requirements of the code. The site plan approval does not include the approval of signage. A separate approval will be needed to ensure compliance with the code. The engineering department provided comment related to access, water and sewer, and stormwater management, and staff is recommending approval of the site plan with 7 conditions.
Thank you. Questions from the commission? I have a question for the engineer, I guess. It's really about the parking. I appreciate the shared parking. I think that's great. My question is just about communicating shared parking to patrons, because Oxford residents have reason to be a little paranoid about parking in developments like the Pearl from the recent past. And so will there be any indication that there's shared parking throughout this area?
Are you specifically referring to the residential or just the entire
Just, I mean,
site
all of
and
these areas
signage,
that are
like
included
signage
in a shared parking easement, just giving people awareness that they're not going to get towed if they park in that place.
I don't know that I can answer that specifically, but, and honestly, sometimes that becomes somewhat of a reactionary thing where you kind of understand how the patrons use the parking on the areas. And, we're expecting with all of the bedrooms that are being completed and are complete adjacent to the site, plus all the homes that are in Oxford Commons, we're anticipating a lot of foot traffic. So hopefully that will help some, especially from the apartments that are directly adjacent. But as far as specific signage on the site that indicates that, I don't know that is specifically planned, to be honest. Because I know that the easements that are in place, there are recorded easements in place between the 4 lots. Yeah. One of the lots is the detention pond, between the 3 developed lots that specifically allow shared parking, shared access, but I honestly do not know that there's language in there about specific signage that would indicate that. But that's certainly something we can discuss with.
Yeah, I'd appreciate some sort of signage that just says, at the entrance, parking is for whatever, the Pearl and the Commons Entertainment Block or whatever.
It's a very good question and point, and something that, we'll look at in the future with shared parking. And a good example of that would be shopping center after that was redeveloped, where Burger King is, where that development is supposed to have shared parking inside of it. And a lot of the businesses have put out
it's just for
signs just for those businesses. So I think that's something that you might want to think about, maybe a condition that could be added to, for staff to kind of work out, right? Certificate of occupancy on that shared parking with signage.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, the question might. The question might be asked another way: is there an intention to put signage up that would prevent shared parking?
Yeah, I mean, I asked it the way I did because I think people are very concerned about
You want
being towed.
proactivity, yeah.
And I mean, I think having the shared parking easements there is worth advertising and giving people an imagination for, I don't need to park right at the door if there's parking around. But I think, we're all very private property conscious, and I think the rule followers, at least in the crowd, are going to avoid trying to park at the Pearl because they think that's using somebody else's space. So signage would be welcome.
Yeah, it's kind of like going to maybe El Charro and Cinco de Mayo, and it's very busy, and so a lot of folks park in the True Hotel parking lot right next door when it's not being used. I think that's the intent here, but does True Hotel do that? Does the manager of True Hotel have a car tow? And so what protections are in place? I think that's a very valid point.
It is a valid point. And,
There's shared parking there?
I didn't say that.
Okay.
Why does it gotta be Cinco de Mayo? I didn't get towed either.
Okay.
There all the time.
Okay. Any other comments or questions? All right. If there are none, is there a motion on case number 3227 for the site plan approval?
Make a motion we approve to the staff conditions.
And could I propose an additional condition to explore shared parking signage with staff?
I was just about to say yes. If we can add that, I think that's a great idea.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, it's approved. Thanks, sir. If there's no other business to come before the commission, is there a motion to adjourn? Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.